Morning. It's not really morning, it's actually evening. Just opening up the barn. I got home from work not too long ago, did a little bit of stuff in the house. The lights actually came on. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. As I've been promising, I'm going to start the video for the 326 square baler today. New Holland. I did a little bit, and then while I was gone, my dad did a little bit of work on it, so I didn't get any footage of that, but I'll catch you guys up here real quick, and then we'll get started. Nourishment. And this is called the feeder housing. So I've already taken part of this apart. We got the cover flipped up. You have these tracks here. You got this big sprocket here. And there's another sprocket in there. That sprocket's the dry sprocket. The main piece is your feeder bar. That's what this is. Okay. That feeder bar is made up of this tube. You have an aluminum block on the 326. There's some different for different models. But this aluminum block goes in the end, right in here. And this shaft goes in there, and it gets clamped down. Then on each end of that shaft, you have a bearing on each end. Those bearings run in this track here. Then on the other end of the feeder bar, go down here, you have a head. It's got a couple bearings in it, and in those bearings, my gloves here, this shaft goes in there, that clamps on there, and this is this chain runs on this big sprocket here, and it's going around like this, and that feeder bar follows that chain. Okay, and as it goes, whenever it goes in, it goes to the top of the sprocket, then it comes back, then it goes down to the bottom, then it goes towards the chamber. And what that does is, when it's up, it's going over the hay. When it's down, it's dragging the hay to the chamber. And so on this bar, you have some teeth that look like this. You have teeth that looks like this. I have some new for the 320, and they all fit the same size bar and all that stuff. So that gets you guys caught up to where we are now. I'm sorry I didn't capture that coming apart. There's not a whole lot to it. There are, if you can see this bolt right here, and there's one in there. It's kind of hard to see in there. You loosen those up. You don't have to take them all the way off, but you loosen them up. And on the other side, you see this frame right here. This is those bolts I was talking about. This is slotted, okay? So there's also a bolt that goes right here. Well, that bolt is just used to tension that chain, and then once it's tensioned, you tighten these two bolts down, and that holds it, okay? So you loosen up those two bolts, you loosen up this tension bolt, and then that piece there slides towards the chamber. Then what that allows you to do is that gives you slack in the chain to be able to, connecting link, whatever you want to call it, loose or off. One of the issues I have is right here. Oh, you can kind of tell. It's high over here and high over here, and it's low here. So one of the issues that you run into with the New Holland baler with this type of feeder system, so that's going to be any of your higher capacity balers prior to the 570 and 575. Even on that series, the 560, 565 still use this same feeder system. And the reason I say high capacity, 276, 320, 326, 315, 316, 311, all those use this type of feeder bar. But now if you go back to like the 269, 268, 273, I'm sure there's other ones, just the ones I know off the top of my head. Those have a different style feeder. They're a lower profile, and you can't feed quite as much hay in. They still have rollers, but they seem to be a little bit more forgiving, when it comes to keeping them up. But what happens is you have these bearings that run in this track. Now, if I stick this in here, so if you look here, there's more than a half inch, but probably not quite 3/4. But there's a lot of play there. And what happens is the poly cover wears. They get dry rotted, they crack, they fall apart, fall off. I'm gonna grab a poly piece so you guys can see what I'm talking about. For those of you that don't know, this is the poly piece that I'm talking about. That slides right over the bearing. It goes in, and it's got just a little bit of play. So there's that. And then also, the bearing from New Holland comes, it's the bearing and a stud. And this is what it looks like when it's out, okay? So that stud in this shaft right here, it's hollow on the end. It's solid the rest of the shaft, but it's hollow, and it has that, basically a set screw right here. What I do, this is just a press fit. I just press this bearing off, and I have sourced the proper bearing without the stud. And I believe this is like, I don't know, 40 or 60 bucks. This piece here, I can get the bearing for $2. Save a lot of money doing that. And I do that on a lot of stuff. That makes it a lot more reasonable to work on a baler. If you buy everything from New Holland, it does get very expensive. I mean, luckily on this one, this only takes 2 of these. On a 320, it takes 6. So that adds up really quick. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to attempt to take this sprocket off. Then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to take both of these tracks off. I'm going to take this main piece of framework right here off. The main problem with this is you can't source this from New Holland. They don't make this piece. But I'll have to either get a salvage part or make a part. Okay. Look here, this is the outside. So this is the inside race of the outer bearing. Then you can see, obviously the bearing's not on here. It stayed on the shaft, and it has a spacer in between these bearings. Spacer off first. Matters what direction, but we'll put it in the way it was on there, like that. And then this bearing. For any of you out there that want to source different parts other than the New Holland bearings, this is a Fafner (9105P). So it is a single seal bearing. It's sealed on one side and not the other. I believe with it on there, I only counted 2 teeth, but there's at least 3 here. So there's one tooth here broke completely off. One tooth here broke completely off. One tooth here broke completely off. And then I think that's all the ones that are broken off completely. But, oh man, it's pretty freaking rough. Like this one here looks pretty bad. And if you stand it up and you look down it, you got something like this one right here. I'm gonna go ahead and take that inner track off, and then I'll try to take this outer track off. And then we'll assess what I gotta do on the lid here, and what I have to take loose to take this back piece out. If you look down them, you can see the difference in height here to here. And this one here, there is some adjustment here. This one is down as far as it'll go. This one, I don't think there's any adjustment on this one. So that's how far down this has been bent. And of course, you see all this stuff here. This here really has no effect on the way it performs. I will, it's ugly. So I will try to straighten that out as much as I can, take a grinder and clean the edges up. There's a bar that bolts on here, and it goes straight across here. Actually a step up to go over the plunger. And you can see that opening where that light's coming through, that's where it would attach on the other side. So what that is for is this feeder bar has forks like this, and those forks are supposed to straddle that bar. And when they get to the plunger, when they go up on the top of that sprocket, they come up, and that bar keeps the hay from going up with the forks. It was not on here when I bought the baler. I'm perfectly fine with that. The 320, whenever it crashed and went in, it actually caved this entire piece here in and tore this up, tore everything up. I mean, it causes more damage than it's worth. And I've run the 276 we had. We took it out when it failed. I actually, unless you're good at maintaining your baler, I recommend taking this piece out. If you take it out before you have a crash, before it fails catastrophically, you're going to save yourself some headache, because whenever it fails catastrophically, if that bar's in there, you're going to have structural damage. If it's not in there, odds are, you might have something like this, but no major structural damage. So take the bar off is what I'm saying. If you are green, take the bar off. If you are very experienced and you're in some kind of specialty product that you're baling and it's really stringy or something, maybe it needs it. If you're experienced enough to make that call, leave it in. That's fine. But I'm just telling you, if you just got one of these balers, or if you've been using one and you haven't been keeping it up, take the bar out. Take it out right now. Go do it. Go do it right now. Don't wait. Okay, now that you're back, you've already done that. Maintain it. Okay, that's the last thing I'm going to say. Okay, we're going to take this off. Let's get going. So we're going to take the feeder bar. We're going to take the track, the newer track off. And you can see it's transforming into a lot of nothing. It don't take long to make it look like there's nothing there when you start taking pieces apart like this. I'll try to find a decent spot for you guys to reside. Let's go over here. See what happens. So do a quick overview here. What we got left to do to get this piece off. I have this, there's 2 bolts here. This bolt loose. And then nothing across here until I get down here. I'm going to take this whole thing completely off. Going to weld this up. And I'm going to take this piece here off. This piece, this guard. Once I get that off, there are 2 bolts on the end of it where this piece here ends over here. And then there's just this plate right here. No, right here. There's another one right there. So I got this piece off the other day. I had issues with a couple of these turning because they have, you know, they put the carriage bolts in here so the hay don't hang on it. But then there's not much meat here for the square piece on the inside to grab, so it just spins. So I'm gonna take the grinder and grind the heads off of these three. I got these two off, and I'm just taking this bracket here off so I can flip it upside down and it'll sit better. Flip this over here, and you can see, I don't know if you can see that in the camera too well, but you can see how much it's bent. It's probably ta-da! What I'll do is, I got me some sheet steel. I'll just rip a piece, whatever this width here is. I'll rip me a piece, and then this piece, if I get it straight, or the new piece, I'll just lay it up there, drill me some holes in it. The problem with this, something this big, it's just bulky to maneuver around on my steel table, and it's just a long area that's, you know, it's not just bent in one single spot. It's bent here, but then it's like a bow, you know, so it's just really hard to get it straight and get it right. So but we'll figure out something. I'm gonna get a hold of that guy and see if I'm gonna price a new one. I mean, if a new one's $50, I'm not even gonna mess with trying to straighten it, you know. Now if it's a couple $100, that might be a little bit different story, but so all right, on to the next item. I'm gonna use my knife as a pointer here. So if you look on here, you see this was actually still up in here, but this is what's left of the seal for this bearing. That's just the metal ring that the seal really attaches to.